Look at this place. It looks like chaos. It's completely crazy. There's all sorts of things happening. It doesn't look like a commercial center in many ways. And I'm going to show you the amazing businesses in this environment, an invisible marketplace with a huge opportunity. This is an amazing market. In fact, it's worth R1 billion rand a year, despite the fact it doesn't look like it. And let me show you what it is. This outlet here sells between 500 and 1,000 vetkoek a day. And it's one of thousands and thousands of other outlets where every morning you'll find a queue outside, vetkoeks going, cheese slices going with it. So every morning everyone gets their cheese slice, pops it into your boiling hot vetkoek, and this is the breakfast muffin of Soweto and everywhere else, in fact, where you find vetkoeks. And then at lunchtime, we have the gorta industry. And over here you can see a gorta, which is basically a quarter loaf of bread with slap chips, with polony, with acha, with a cheese slice, and a fried egg. Of course, it's you can see it's endorsed by the Heart Foundation. And this is a huge industry. This is the burger of the township. This is the lunch of the township. This is the takeaway of the township environment. For Parmalat, we introduced cheese slices into first the vetkoek and then the gorta. And so that we created an industry where every single gorta had a cheese slice. We created a R1 billion rand industry which never existed before, but purely associating Parmalat cheese slices with the lunch and the breakfast of these this industry.
It's melted cheese.
What cheese?
Melted cheese. Parmalat.
It's now worth to Parmalat 850 million rand a year. Cheese slices are eaten everywhere around the country.
This one, 12 rand. 12 rand.
12 rand. Yes. And how often do you buy a gorta?
Almost every day.
Every day. Yes. And today, you won't have a gorta, you won't have a vetkoek without a Parmalat cheese slice. We believe there's 100,000 informal stores, often called spazas, in South Africa, of which 70%, about 70,000 stores, are owned by foreign people. Primarily Ethiopian and Somali, followed by Bangladeshi, Pakistani, and in the vegetable sector, to a large extent, Mozambicans. The spaza shop is in essence the forecourt of the township. Every single street has a little spaza shop. It is very much about run-out items, it's about sweets, it's about milk, and it's small pack sizes. Completely not a grocery shop. If I want to order something, I have to bring my face down here and I have to order what I want because I still can't see anything, so I ask for the brand I want and I need to know what I want. These guys here are so new that no one knows about them. So you don't find any point of sale, you don't find any branding, you don't find any name boards, but they need to establish themselves as selling branded goods. So they actually pay people to paint these branded items over the wall. And how do you recognize them? You recognize them by these homemade paintings. The spaza fulfills a weekly shopping function as well as a monthly shopping function. And one of the important things that makes these places so successful is that they're right in the neighborhood of the shopper. So when it comes to products like maize meal, larger packs that you would have to carry, that you would pay a seat for in a taxi, a penalty of a second seat, you can actually get them right here. This is basically a month hamper. It has all your key elements: maize, flour, sugar, tea, cooking oil. This is very definitely where you would come for your mid-month or your month-end grocery shopping. And then there's about 500,000 tabletops, places like this around us, whether they're selling nappies, whether they're selling vegetables, CDs, sweets. The average person is making 1,500 to 3,000 rand a month. And if you consider that there's 500,000 of them, it's a massive, massive part of our informal sector. Now, outlets like this, surprisingly, can do hundreds of meals like this a day. We believe there's about 50,000 fast food or this kind of food takeaway, excluding the gorta outlets that you saw. Now, these kind of places are all South African owned. South Africans won't eat food that's made by foreigners. When you ask people why they would purchase food in a place like this, there's a little gazebo, sometimes it's a caravan on the street corner, is basically that people will tell you that the food here is not, first of all, traditional African food. The flavors of it, whether it be the gravy or the spinach, is done in the proper African way. And the second thing is about it is fresher. You look at this environment, you think it's on the street corner, it's in a gazebo, it's out in the street, and yet people say we can see the person making the food right in front of us. I was at the BMW plant in Roslyn, and the lady outside has about 300 people who buy food from her every day. So I asked her, I said, why do these people buy from you? Isn't there a canteen inside the BMW place? They said, of course there's a canteen inside, but they said the food inside the canteen is not as fresh as the food that is being made by the lady outside. And the flavors and the taste aren't the flavors and the taste we want. The value given to this kind of food is far higher and more popular. And that is why you have this massive industry of this gazebo, amapleti, mohodu, all sorts of a range of different foods that people are buying in this environment. As she says, the food doesn't sleep here, the food gets cooked every single day. This is a informal, generally foreign-owned wholesale environment. And the reason for being for these kind of places, and there's many of them, we believe there's about 300 in the country, we've got a database of about 150 in the main centers. The reason for being is in essence they're a wholesaler. You can see all the packs, but they're a wholesaler closer to the spaza, the hawker, the spazarette in the township environment, and it becomes easier for a trader to come to this kind of outlet that's close to where he is in the township and reduces cost of transport.
They stock normally for 3 days,
Okay.
but the stock only lasts a day
Okay.
due to the customers,
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
understand.
Where's your shop?
My shop,
Yeah,
Nesfield.
in Nansfield. You're pushing this all the way to Nansfield?
Yes.
This one all the way? How many kilometers is that?
25.
25 kilometers. See, that is a long way to push that trolley, but it saves you transport costs. A place like this sells products like this in individual units. Not because they're selling to a shopper, consumer, but the trader is able to buy a couple of individual units. He's not penalized at all for the price. Whereas if you go to a typical normal wholesaler, you buy smaller packs, individual packs, you pay more than if you buy a case. You can see he's packed to the roof. This place is full as anything. And none of the stock actually lasts very long. These guys have an incredibly efficient system. His phone is perpetually beeping, and he'll be buying his stuff from the independent wholesalers. Devlin, Diaruna, Devlin's just up the road here, but the guy will fetch it from there. He'll go to Springs Cash and Carry. He'll go all around finding the best possible deal, bringing it in here and selling it at very low margins, 2 to 7%, maximum 7%, but he's moving his stock really fast, very low overheads. The manufacturers don't know they exist. And this is the future, in a sense, of the independent wholesale industry. What happened is that the Spars, the ShopRites, the Cambridge Boxer, all of those people entered the township environment. And when they entered the township environment, the South African Spaza owner couldn't compete. And suddenly, they all started closing down. It was easier for someone to walk over to the ShopRite, take a taxi to the ShopRite, than go to the Spaza shop. The foreigners entered this gap. And the gap was that they could rent a shop from the old Spaza owner, and so it was a low cost of entry. But very importantly, they understand this trade incredibly well. They'll have loss leaders, they will have specials, their pricing will compete completely effectively with a ShopRite. They keep their overheads incredibly low. They're moving their stock all the time. They understand which product to have. They understand pricing. Their pricing on a heavy product like a bag of maize meal, which is hard to carry all the way from town from the ShopRite here, is slightly higher than it would be at a ShopRite. A smaller item like bread or a small packet of sugar will be much cheaper than a ShopRite. And your consumer is able to then balance the real economics of taking a taxi and getting a slightly cheaper product at the ShopRite in town or further down the road in the township versus getting a really good price in this environment. 30% of South African households spend more than 10% of their income on transport. So when you go to the shops to purchase, you've got to grab a taxi, you've got to pay just locally from one part of Soweto to another part of Soweto. You're probably paying 16 to 20 Rand for a return trip. Not counting the fact that if you have a large packet of groceries or bags of groceries, you would pay for 2 seats, so you're paying 40 Rand. So for someone who earns 1,500, 2,000 Rand a month, can you imagine what proportion of that is? And the reality is that how far would you walk to go and fetch your shopping? Even if a ShopRite's 5 kilometers away, the Spazarette that's 500 meters away is far more competitive, has very similar pricing, very similar range, and so people will be using the local environment. The second part of it is very much the locavore value of it, is that you can get your vegetables that are fresher here, you can get your plate of food from the gazebo that is made in the way you like, you believe it's fresher. You also have a social interaction with the person. So any of these hawkers is very often a long transaction. It's a discussion, it's a bit of gossip, it's a whole experience, it's a shopper experience as well as a transaction.